Hi, episode 61 of the Antiphonary walkthrough. We have arrived at folio 30. The most striking feature of the page is probably this wonderful letter X as a start of the Christus, of the antiphon Christus in cruce positus. And immediately before that we have the erasure, the remains of a antiphon that we have talked about, the antiphon Valde, in the previous movie. We are actually at the end of the second nocturn of the Matins of Saint John. But let's compare this letter X for a moment with the same letter in the other volume of the same antiphonary. This antiphonary that we are talking about is from 1481, but as I have been telling you in one of the first movies, there's a second volume which is oddly enough called volume 2. I mean oddly enough because it's actually 10 years older. It's from 1471, whereas this one is from 1481. But if we turn to the other volume and we move our cursor a bit, we see that actually there's a striking similarity in the letter X of Christus and also the same erasure happening here, which is of course no coincidence because these two books would have been used, each of them on one side of the choir, so they should have been and were almost exactly the same. Let's return to the page we are talking about, folio 30 in our 1481 antiphonary. And if we scroll down just a little bit, we see the start of the first responsory in illum diem, the first responsory of the second nocturn of Saint John, so immediately after Christmas. And then its verse, the Esto fidelis, usque ad mortem. And if we compare the repetendum digit, it refers us to the digit over here. If we go back to our other volume, and then we see that here, over here, the repetendum is actually quoniam. Quoniam referring to the quoniam over here, and not, as in the other volume, to the digit over here. So for some reason this has been amended and not corrected, which is just a little bit strange because, as I said, the two books would have been used at the same time. So returning to the page at hand, we have the word sic enim volo manere donec veniam. This word donec is interesting for comparison as well. Mark two things. First of all, the first two notes are a classic pes or podatus, two notes vertically positioned. And then the three last notes of what I'm showing here are each of them rhombus notes. If we take a look at the same word in the other volume, over here, we see that the first two notes are actually positioned not vertically relating to each other, but diagonally, and the second one being a little bit later than the first one, which is actually quite strange and maybe even an error, because as we can see elsewhere, in similar circumstances, the two notes of the pes would have been vertically positioned. So the thing that is usual when a pes has two consecutive notes, as a G and an A, for example, here, whereas here it is an F and an A, they could have been vertically positioned, but they were not, so that could have been a small error. Secondly, the three nombers, the three rhombus notes of which I was talking earlier on, the third one of them has become the first note of a group of notes forming a porrectus prepunctis, so a note connected to the porrectus over here with this two-note oblique. If it has any consequences in the performance, this would be very, very difficult to ascertain. I think not, actually. Even this may be one of the small proofs that specific positionings of notes and organization of neumes had no particular relevance to the performance practice of the melody. But I will come back to that, to those problems in later movies as well. Anyway, the last verse at the page, so the verse of the responsorium Iste Johannes, is this verse, the Johannes, with clearly written the vacat, meaning of course that this verse should not be sung, and instead of this one another one has been added, the Fluenta evangelii, which is actually a verse usually connected with another responsory, the Hic est discipulis. Thanks for listening. Keep watching.